Hey y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. It has been a long time, far too long. And, sometimes I just get too many ideas and I'm too busy thinking about all the ideas. And then I never get around to actually putting some of those out there. And since today is the last day of January, I figured this is the absolute last time that I can actually bring up something that happened around Christmas. So yeah, it's been that long and too many ideas, too many things going on. But those are good things generally that have been going on, and so thankful to be busy for those reasons instead of other reasons. But I wanted to talk a little bit about something, a bold dad pronouncement I made. I think it was actually Christmas Day, maybe shortly after Christmas Day, definitely before New Year's. And I kind of announced to my family that, you know what, from now on, we are doing church Christmas Day, always and forever. And not only that, we may even go back to the old school way we kind of did it when I first started out in ministry. We are going to do church and then we're going to do presents. Man, we're going hardcore. I don't know, maybe I lost my mind, but that's the plan at least. We'll see how long I can keep it up. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why. So some of you may have seen a social media post I had a few days after Christmas. It was a post about how I was having a long December, and posted a song from Counting Crows, Long December. It's a great song and kind of a gloomy but hopeful song. And I shared it because there had just been so much going on in December. We had so many people dying, so many tragic things going on, people losing people that were far too young. There were several deaths by suicide connected that I was sort of connected to because of my work with the coroner's office and their chaplaincy program. And it was just a real downer of a December. And, what makes Jesus so sweet? Well, Jesus is sweet because Jesus is one of the only things, he's the only person at all that I can think of that helps give you hope in the midst of times like that. I mean, if you don't have Jesus, just about every other worldview you have, if you think more about that worldview, you think more about those ideas, those beliefs, and you're in a situation like that with that much death going on around you, that much sadness, despair in some of those cases, then you don't have any hope. But if you have Jesus, you have hope. If you think we're all just going to burn up and disappear into the dustbin of this incredible expanding universe that's just going to explode and implode upon itself at some point, and we're just going to be a bunch of dust, there's no meaning to our lives, nothing like that, then there's no hope. And if you have Jesus, and Jesus is somehow able to work in and through these things, Jesus, who died and who rose again from the dead, gives us hope that even death is not the end, that death can be and will be overcome in Jesus. Well, then you have hope, right? So I thought about that a lot in December, and then I showed up on Christmas Day. Now, Christmas Day services, they don't happen that much anymore. A lot of churches have kind of done away with them. Open Arms actually was not doing it for a while, but there were some folks that had some real, a real passion for making sure we had church on Christmas Day. And so they kind of picked it up and were making it happen for a while. I initially, when I got here, I was kind of like, you know what, this is a nice little break that somebody else is kind of helping make this happen. In fact, it may still be an important part of helping me make sure that Christmas Day services happen in the future. But I showed up Christmas Day, all of that death and sadness and reasons for despair, perhaps, if you don't have any hope. And there was this woman that came up to me after church. We were talking about the joy. It's a mission of joy, right? Jesus brings joy, and that's what we should bring on our mission. We have beautiful feet. Beautiful, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And so this idea of joy, that's what we talked about. And there was a couple of women there, one in particular that I knew, one that I sort of know a little bit, but haven't had a chance to get to know her real well. But they were both there. And I talked to one of them afterward, and she's been through a lot. We'll just leave it at that. I actually invited her to come on. Maybe we'll see her on here. She can talk a little bit about it. But she'd been through a lot the last year, last couple of years, and maybe you could say her life, right? I think if we all took a look at our lives, we could probably find that we've been through a lot at various points. But there are people that have really been through it, and they usually bring a tremendous amount of respect, right? They've earned a lot of respect. They have a lot of that from the people around them. The faith that they continue to have in the face of some of those difficulties. So I was chatting with this woman after church on Christmas Day, and knowing how much loss that she has endured, and just how difficult the previous year had been, and even the year before that, and just talking about that and how thankful she was to be at church that day. And she was telling me how glad she was she came. And then she was telling me about someone else that she was talking to who was there that day, who wasn't sure that they were going to come on Christmas Day, and sharing how this woman told her how glad she was that she had come to church on Christmas Day. And it just really got me thinking. You know, I had just spent the last month or two doing all this crazy Christmas shopping for my kids and my wife, and trying to create a special Christmas, right? This Christmas that will always be remembered. And my kids can never tell me that I didn't do anything for them. They can't complain anymore. And, you know, it's kind of a sore subject maybe for me in our household. You know, I'm a pastor, and my wife is homeschooling our kids. And so, you know, we got a limited budget. We got 4 kids too, so that makes it real tricky. So we tend to have more subdued Christmases. Plus, we just think it's not about that stuff, but it's obviously about Jesus, right? That's what we're celebrating. So I'm going through, leading up to Christmas this year, I was kind of pulled into all kinds of stuff, and just trying to maybe overdo it a little bit more than I probably should have. And then I had this conversation about how glad she was she came to church on Christmas Day, and how glad this other woman was that they came to church on Christmas Day. And then thinking about what they'd actually been through, the losses that they had experienced. And I just thought that all the stuff that I've been thinking about and worrying about didn't matter. Not at all. You know, at some point, the things that I bought my kids are going to get thrown in the garbage. My wife and I talk about this a lot. Sometimes those things go in the garbage long before we ever thought they would. And even if they don't go in the garbage, they stop being used almost immediately, right? Maybe they get used Christmas Day, and then all of a sudden we see 6 months later, like, where is that thing that we went crazy to try and buy, and they're not even using it? So thinking about that, and thinking about Jesus, the reason for the season, and how important he is, and especially how important he is when you've been through an absolutely miserable month, a miserable year, a miserable several years, a miserable stretch, lengthy stretch, who knows how many years. Do you really care if you got that new video game, or you got that new video game system, or you got some special toy, whatever it might have been, whatever the hottest thing was this year? I don't know exactly. My kids, you know, I know I got them, but does that really matter when you've lost a spouse? Does that really matter when you've lost a child? Does that really matter when you've lost a parent? And, I think a lot of people skip out on church Christmas Day because they're thinking about family, right? Well, Christmas is about family. And it is. Obviously, Jesus is the reason for the season, but Christmas is a time for families to gather. But I thought about what happens when your family's gone. Because that's ultimately what our family is going to do to us. Even if you've got a great family, right? I mean, of course, there are plenty of families that are train wrecks and disasters, and you don't even get together anymore, or you don't want to get together. You don't even know where they are. You haven't heard from them in decades, maybe, right? There's those situations. But what about you had the best family ever? Did everything together, all kinds of holidays, all kinds of stuff that made precious memories. Even they will be gone someday. There's a good chance that one Christmas you won't have those people to gather around the Christmas tree with. What do you do then? What are all those gifts? What were they good for? What were all those memories for? I mean, if those are good things to do, and it's good to have those good memories, but ultimately they're just memories at that point. They don't necessarily help you when you've lost that. The good memories in some ways make it harder when they're gone. So I started thinking about what can I really give my kids? Is it the new guitar, drum set, video games, trips? I'm not saying you don't do those things. I'd certainly like to do whatever I can for my kids whenever I can. But if I'm not giving them Jesus, what am I giving them? If, especially at Christmas, I'm not giving them Jesus, what am I doing? Because Jesus is the only one that's always with you. He never leaves you. He never forsakes you. When your whole family's gone, you can still come to church on Christmas and celebrate the reason for the season. In fact, not only do you still have someone when everyone else is gone, it's even better when you come and celebrate. The celebration is actually more meaningful because you have a deeper appreciation of what he actually brings. His arrival actually brings. It's hope that God hasn't forgotten about us. That even though everyone else is gone, even though there are plenty of people that may have abandoned us, either through death or through other types of abandonment, Jesus hasn't. Jesus didn't. Jesus won't. He's coming again. And we're going to live forever. We're going to be raised from the dead, just like Jesus was raised from the dead. There's so much hope, and it's even more powerful in the face of all that loss. And so that's why I told him, you know what? We are not opening our presents until we worship Jesus. Now, in a lot of situations, you're not going to be able to go to church. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of churches that just don't do that anymore, and I totally get it because churches are understaffed, under-volunteered, under-supported in so many different ways. Pastors need a break. Pastors need to be with their families. They can't be working all the time, but do it somehow. Watch it live from home. I mean, we make that possible with all of our worship services. Forget the live thing. Just do it yourself. Spend some time worshiping Jesus, remembering that he is the reason for the season, remembering the hope that he brings, the true joy, the light that he is, the newborn king, the light of the world. But there's something else that got me thinking. These ladies showed up, and I don't know all their situation, who was available, who wasn't available in their family, their friends, whatever. But I thought about if you have no one left, you can show up at church and have an entire family. I mean, Jesus redefined family. You can read this, I think it's in Mark chapter 3, where, Jesus' family is looking for him. They think he's kind of out of his mind. They're trying to get him and tell him to stop talking about some of the crazy stuff he's talking about. And then the crowds that he's speaking to, they say, hey, your mother and brothers, they're looking for you. And Jesus says, who are my mother and brothers? These are my brothers and mothers and sisters, anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven, right? So when you become a follower of Christ, you have a family. You have a new family. You have a better family because they're always there. There's always going to be someone that's a part of the family of Christ, even if your biological family is all gone. So the importance of worship on Christmas, but not just Christmas. It's not about whether I worship Jesus at church on Christmas Day that is going to help my kids catch this whole Jesus thing. It's an everyday thing. Deuteronomy 6, you should be teaching these things to your kids when you get up, when you lie down, when you eat, when you walk on the road, on the way, everywhere you go. You're helping shape them and mold them. You're helping lead them to Jesus, showing them Jesus. So not something I've been great at so far the beginning of this year. Gotta maybe double down or increase my efforts in this way this year. But there is no doubt in my mind that I can't give my kids anything better than Jesus. And of course it's going to be a struggle. Of course there's going to be these battles. There's going to be this resistance, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. It's worth way more aggravation than trying to get all the things on the Christmas list and fight people for the toys and things. Not this past Christmas, but the one before that, PS5 was like an impossible thing to get. You had to jump through all these hoops to try and get on lists and get them in special releases and things like that, and be sitting there at the computer going, can we get it? Can we get it? Can we get it? And then trying to get it, right? Think of all the aggravation we put ourselves through for our kids for Christmas presents. It's worth at least that, day in and day out, to try and make Jesus a regular part of your life, and the life of your family, the people you love, the people around you. So I just want to encourage you to do that, because Jesus is far sweeter. Far sweeter. All right, y'all. Hey, I hope this is the first of many more. We've got a couple of guests coming in on Thursday. We've got Pastor Brock Kane coming back. We're going to pick up where we left off with the sixth commandment. We've also got Joy Hartley. She's coming in on Thursday afternoon to share something that God has done in her life, how Jesus is sweet to her. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a lot of other things too. And if you haven't heard, we've got a number of things in the works. We've got prayer journals available on Amazon. We've got some gratitude journals. We've got some for adults. We got some for tweens. We got some for kids. All kinds of stuff. You can check out our Facebook page. You can check out Instagram. You can check out all kinds of stuff and find those things available there. I've shared that. Probably got to do a better job of making those things more visible. But if you got any questions, you can send me an email. JesusIsSweeter@gmail.com. Again, JesusIsSweeter@gmail.com. And we'll send you the link to those things. God be with you. Don't forget, no matter how miserable things get, there is hope in Christ. There is so much hope in Christ that it makes everything else that we're worried about, all the things that we're worrying about at Christmas and every other day of the week, insignificant. All right, y'all.